Before we start, please support the channel, hit like, and subscribe. Vanessa, can I get the orange juice? I asked, eyes still half on my phone, not even thinking. Sunday morning. Eggs on the skillet. Sun pouring through the window. It should have been peaceful. Instead, glass shattered like a gunshot. I jolted upright as the carafe slammed against the tile and exploded, juice arcing in slow motion across the white cabinets. She stood there, fists clenched, chest heaving. I'm not your servant, Ryan. What the hell? I blinked. It was a question. A simple, oh, spare me this simple routine, she snapped, pointing at me like she was aiming a weapon. Every week it's the same thing. Pass this, bring that. Can you grab the salt, babe? You don't even see me anymore. I stood slowly, the chair groaning beneath me. Vanessa, it was orange juice. I didn't ask you to tile the roof. You think this is about juice? She laughed, short and sharp. You treat me like a background character in your life. Like I'm just supposed to orbit you. Smile, serve, keep quiet. I stepped around the broken glass, carefully, keeping my voice even. That's not fair. You know I do my part around here. Her eyes narrowed. Oh yeah? When's the last time you did the laundry without me asking? Clean the bathroom? You show up when it's easy, Ryan. But I'm the one carrying everything. That one landed. And I won't lie, part of me wanted to fire back. To defend myself. To remind her that I work long hours, that I put food on this table, that this house doesn't pay for itself. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I bent down to start gathering the glass. And that's when it happened, a sharp slice across my thumb. Blood bloomed instantly, trickling down to the tile. Damn it, I hissed, clutching the wound. Vanessa looked over. For a second, I thought maybe the anger would soften, that she'd rush to grab a towel, check if I was okay. She didn't move. She just stood there, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. I bleed and you don't even flinch. I asked, holding the napkin to my hand. What happened to you, Vanessa? She stared me down. What happened to us, Ryan? You don't even realize how dead this marriage is. You think a cut finger is pain? Try being invisible every day. That's bull. I snapped, rising to my feet. I've been here. I never cheated. I never lied. I built this life for us. And somewhere along the way, you stopped building with me. Her voice cracked, just slightly. The silence that followed was brutal. Outside, a bird chirped. Somewhere, a neighbor's lawnmower buzzed to life. But in our kitchen, it felt like a war zone. Finally, she broke it. I'm going out, she said coldly, grabbing her keys from the hook. To where? She turned at the door. Anywhere you're not. The door slammed behind her. My shoulders dropped, the tension draining out in waves I couldn't control. I looked around. Broken glass. Sticky juice. A paper napkin stained red. And it hit me. This wasn't a crack. It was the beginning of a collapse. I booked the trip because I thought maybe, just maybe, a change of scenery could shift something between us. Florida was always Vanessa's favorite, somewhere she used to laugh more easily, back when we'd race to the beach like kids, track sand into the hotel room, and fight over who got to control the playlist on long drives down the coast. I remembered all of that. I remembered her. Now, sitting across from her on the balcony of a five-star resort with the ocean humming below, all I saw was a stranger nursing a mango cocktail and scrolling through her phone. You like the hotel? I asked, voice soft. She barely looked up. It's fine. Fine. That word had teeth. Just fine. I chuckled lightly, trying to keep it playful. They upgraded us to a suite for free. You used to love this place. I guess I've changed, she said, setting the glass down harder than necessary. I let that hang in the air. She didn't apologize. Didn't explain. The wind blew in from the ocean, warm and salty. Normally it'd carry away tension. Not today. So, what exactly are we doing here, Vanessa? I asked finally, because I feel like I'm dragging a ghost around this resort. She arched a brow. You really want to do this now? I think now is the only time we do talk anymore. And even then, it's like pulling teeth. She rolled her eyes and turned away, staring out at the endless blue. You want me to say thank you? For dragging me here like this is some kind of romantic reboot? I wanted us to have a moment, I replied, the edge finally slipping into my voice. Some kind of breath. Something real. But I feel like I'm the only one trying. Her laugh was quiet, almost bitter. Ryan, you think booking a weekend trip fixes what's broken? You can't schedule love like it's a dentist appointment. My jaw tensed. No, but I thought maybe, if I reminded you of what we used to have, maybe something would come back. She turned to face me then, eyes hard. What came back, she said slowly, was the feeling of being trapped. That's what this is. A fancy cage. That's not fair, isn't it? Her voice rose. You bring me here like we're still some happy couple, and you expect gratitude. But Ryan, I'm not that girl anymore. I don't get giddy over hotel robes and beachside dinners. You're the one still clinging to a version of us that doesn't exist. I stood, chair scraping against the wooden balcony. So what, Vanessa? You're just going to keep punishing me? For trying? For loving you? She stared at me for a long beat, then looked away again. I don't think you love me. I think you love the idea of me. The one who laughed at your jokes and made pancakes on Sundays. My throat went tight. You used to be that person. Yeah, she whispered. I did. Neither of us said anything for a while. The sound of the ocean kept rolling in, unbothered. A couple walked by below, hand in hand, soft laughter floating upward. A sharp contrast to the glacier forming between us. I leaned on the railing, voice quieter now. When did you stop? She didn't pretend to not understand. She just sighed. I don't know. Maybe when I realized I felt more alive in silence than in our conversations. Or maybe it was the day I looked at you and didn't feel seen anymore. I see you, I said. No, Ryan. You watch me. But you haven't seen me in a long time. That hurt more than I thought it would. Because somewhere inside, I knew she wasn't lying. I came on this trip hoping for a sign, I admitted. And I came to be sure, she said. I turned to her, heart hammering. Sure of what? She looked at me, no hesitation. That I'm done. She stood up and walked inside, sliding the glass door shut behind her. Not a slam, just a soft, final click. I stayed out there, alone, hands gripping the balcony rail, staring at the sea. And suddenly, the salt didn't smell like freedom anymore. It smelled like loss. The cut on my finger was healing, but it still throbbed whenever I bumped it against something. That small sting became a strange sort of companion. A reminder, not of the broken glass, but of the broken us. I sat at the dining table, staring at my hand, tracing the faint pink line where the wound had been. It was quiet. Not the good kind. Not the Sunday morning kind. Vanessa was upstairs, or at least I assumed she was. Lately, she disappeared into rooms without making a sound. I'd stopped asking where she went. I already knew the answer would be vague, if she answered at all. The Florida trip had ended in near silence. We came home like two people who'd missed their exit but kept driving anyway, just waiting for the road to fall apart beneath us. I started noticing things. She laughed at her phone more than she ever laughed in the same room as me. Her fingers flew across the screen at all hours, thumbs dancing like she was auditioning for a role I hadn't been told about. One night, I asked who she was texting. She didn't even look up. Bianca. Her cousin. Maybe. But the smile didn't match. That smile belonged to something else. Someone else. I watched her scroll through dinner. Scroll through movies we weren't watching together. Scroll while I tried to talk about our mortgage renewal, about work, about anything. Did you hear what I said? I asked once. She blinked. What? Sorry, I was reading something. Yeah, I said quietly. I noticed. I tried to chalk it up to stress. Everyone goes through funks. But this didn't feel like a funk. This felt like she was quietly packing her bags from the inside out. Like she was folding herself away, piece by piece, from this life. She used to light up rooms, even when she was exhausted. Her energy filled corners I didn't even know were empty. But now, even when she was in the same space as me, it felt like I was staring at her through frosted glass. Blurred, muted, far. We started eating dinner in silence, sitting on opposite sides of the couch, sleeping back to back, like strangers sharing a rented bed. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. and her side was cold. I found her downstairs, curled up in a blanket, phone glowing in her hand. You okay? I asked from the stairs. She didn't jump, didn't even flinch. Just couldn't sleep, she said, eyes still on the screen. I nodded. All right. I stood there a second longer, watching her face lit up by a conversation I wasn't invited into. Then I turned around and went back upstairs alone. She didn't follow. The next morning, I got up early and made us both coffee. She came into the kitchen already dressed for the day, barely looking in my direction. Coffee's on the counter, I said, sliding her mug closer. She glanced at it. I'll grab some at work. That was it. No thank you. No smile. Just a quiet rejection in a room that used to feel like ours. That evening, I sat back at the table again. Same place, same silence. My finger brushed the edge of the table, and the cut ached a little. Funny how the body heals faster than the heart. I stared across the room at the empty chair where Vanessa should have been. But even when she sat in it lately, it still felt empty. The townhouse we bought 2 years ago had started to feel like a showroom. Every light was perfect, every corner clean, and yet, it felt like no one lived here anymore. Just 2 actors hitting marks in a play neither of us wanted to finish. I looked at the wedding photo still hanging near the entryway. Us in Charleston, laughing in the wind. Her head thrown back, my arm around her waist. That picture had always been my favorite. But now, all I could think was, I didn't know that woman anymore. And I wasn't sure she even remembered me. It was supposed to be just dinner. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, a bottle of red we'd opened out of habit, not desire. We sat at opposite ends of the table again, like a meeting, not a marriage. Vanessa barely touched her plate. Her phone, though, that got plenty of attention. Ping, tap, smile, ping again. It had been like this for weeks. I'd let it slide. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, not to become that guy. But that night, something in me finally broke. Who keeps texting you? I asked, my voice calm but clear. She didn't even look up. It's just Brenda. Her cousin again. Ping. Does Brenda always text you during dinner? At midnight? First thing in the morning? She set her fork down, slow and deliberate, her eyes flashing as she lifted them to meet mine. What's your point, Ryan? I'm asking a question. No, you're monitoring me, she snapped, her voice rising without warning. Like I'm a teenager who has to report every movement. I leaned forward slightly, trying to keep my tone even. I'm asking because I live here too. Because you used to talk to me, and now you just don't. Not unless it's to say what you're not going to do. She scoffed. So now I'm not allowed to have a conversation without your approval? I let out a slow breath. Vanessa, come on. You've been glued to that phone for days. You barely speak to me, barely even exist in this house when we're in the same room. And anytime I ask, it's just Brenda, or it's nothing. So yeah, forgive me if I stop believing you. She pushed her chair back with a loud scrape, her fork clattering against the plate. You always do this, she said, standing now, arms crossed. You twist everything into an interrogation, like I'm on trial. Because I'm your husband, I said quietly, not a fool. That hit her. She didn't yell, didn't cry. She just stared at me. And then, without another word, she turned and walked upstairs. For a moment, I thought that was it. Another cold silence to ride out until morning. But when I heard the zipper on her suitcase echo down the hall, my chest tightened. I stood up. Vanessa? She didn't answer. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time. She was tossing clothes into a bag with sharp, practiced movements. No hesitation, no second guessing. You're leaving? I asked, stunned at how steady she was. She didn't stop folding. Yes. Where are you even going? She looked at me like I'd asked her what color the sky was. Somewhere that doesn't feel like this. Vanessa, come on. You're not even going to talk to me? Just walk out in the middle of the night like I don't exist? I tried talking, she muttered, yanking the zipper closed. You just didn't hear me. And with that, she grabbed her bag and brushed past me. The door slammed a minute later. I called her that night. 3 times. No answer. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my lap, staring into the quiet. Her pillow still smelled like her shampoo. Her slippers were by the closet. Her toothbrush in the cup. But the woman they belonged to was gone. And she wasn't planning on looking back. It had been a week since Vanessa left. 7 days of unanswered texts. 7 nights falling asleep beside a pillow that never moved. 7 mornings making coffee for one. The silence in our townhouse wasn't loud. It was indifferent. Like the walls had already accepted she wasn't coming back. I hadn't told anyone. I didn't want to admit she was gone. Not like that. Not without a word. Not after everything we'd built. I kept hoping maybe she'd come back through the door with a bag of groceries, wearing that annoyed look she used to flash when traffic made her late. But she didn't. Instead, I got a knock at the door. It was Saturday. I had just finished rinsing my mug when I heard it. 3 sharp knocks, like the world wanted my attention back. I opened the door, and there they were. Bianca and Brenda, her twin cousins. Same auburn waves, same sharp jawlines. But where they used to greet me with hugs and chatter, today they stood shoulder to shoulder with serious eyes and pursed lips. Brenda spoke first. Hey, Ryan, can we come in? I stepped aside, my stomach already twisting. Sure. Everything all right. They exchanged a look. That kind of look people give each other when they're holding a secret heavy enough to bruise. We sat down in the living room. Bianca held her phone like it might burn her fingers. Brenda leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Look, she started. We wouldn't be here if this wasn't serious. Bianca nodded. We've been trying to reach Vanessa too, but she's not answering us either. And we just found out where she went. I sat back, every muscle in my body tensing. Where? Brenda swallowed. Cancun. She left the country, Ryan. With someone. I blinked. Someone. Bianca pulled up something on her phone and handed it to me. It was a photo. A man, maybe early 40s, gym-built, shaved head, was taking a selfie on a beach. His arm was around someone. A woman. Vanessa. Wearing a red bikini I'd never seen before. Laughing into his shoulder. Sunglasses perched on her head like it was just another summer day in paradise. The caption read, Paradise with my queen. Hashtag no regrets, hashtag Cancun nights. I stared at it, but the image didn't register at first. It looked like her, but not her. It was some version of Vanessa I'd never met. The version who didn't even flinch leaving without a word. She borrowed money from us last month, Brenda added. Said it was for a medical emergency. $5,000 each. She said she'd pay it back after a settlement came through, Bianca murmured. But now we know it was a lie. I handed the phone back, careful to keep my hand steady. How long has she known him? I asked. Brenda hesitated. We don't know for sure, but we think it's been going on for a while. The room felt cold, like someone had opened a window in winter. I kept thinking maybe she was just angry, I said quietly. Maybe she needed space. I didn't think. She's not thinking straight, Bianca offered, her voice soft. This isn't you. It's her. I nodded slowly, but the ache in my chest disagreed. She was in Cancun, with another man, taking selfies, borrowing money from family with no intention to repay it. And not once, had she reached out to me. Brenda touched my knee. We thought you deserved to know. Thanks, I said. I do. They left a few minutes later, their guilt written all over their faces. But I didn't blame them. This wasn't their mess to own. I stood in the living room for a long time, just staring at the empty couch. There wasn't rage. Not yet. Just a cold, still clarity. Like stepping outside after the season's first frost, when everything looks the same, only quieter. And you realize something has died, but the world hasn't caught on yet. That was me. That was us. Frozen. Silent. Gone. It had been 31 days since Vanessa left. Not that I was counting anymore, but my calendar was. I'd started sleeping better. Eating better, even. Some nights were still tough, sure. But the worst of it, the confusion, the spiraling, the begging myself to believe this was a nightmare, was behind me now. And then came the knock. Bianca and Brenda stood there again, arms full of folders and clipped papers. This is everything, Brenda said as I let them in. Divorce petition, asset summary, our lawyer's recommendation. You won't go through this alone. I exhaled. Deeply. Grateful, didn't even scratch the surface. We sat around the dining table, same one where Vanessa used to leave post-it notes and half-drunk coffee cups. Now it held papers that would officially begin the end of us. Bianca slid the documents across to me. She abandoned the marriage. There's leverage in that. Cancun wasn't just impulsive, it's legally damaging. Even if she shows up again. I asked. Brenda raised an eyebrow. Let her. And like fate wanted to flex, that's exactly when the front door creaked open. I froze. The twins turned in unison. And there she was. Vanessa stood in the entryway, wearing that soft, tilted smile she used when she was trying to be clever. She had a duffel bag slung over one shoulder, her sunglasses perched on top of her head like nothing had happened. Hey, she said lightly, stepping in. Did you miss me? I didn't blink. Didn't breathe for a second. Then, I stood up slowly. I didn't even have time to. Her smile faltered. She looked past me. And that's when the twins stepped out from the hallway behind me, both holding folders. Vanessa's eyes locked on them, and I watched it happen, her mask cracking, just a little. Her gaze flicked to the table, then to the paperwork, then back to me. Really? She said, voice losing its sugar. You have them here helping you now? They offered, I replied calmly. Unlike some people, they didn't disappear when things got hard. Vanessa scoffed, brushing invisible dust off her sleeve. This is pathetic. No, I said. What's pathetic is showing up like nothing happened. Like Cancun was just a weekend jog around the block. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I was already walking toward the door. She stepped back as I reached it, hands tightening on her bag. This house isn't yours anymore, I said quietly. Not emotionally. Not legally. Not even spiritually. I held the door open. Bianca and Brenda stood behind me, silent, steady. Vanessa hesitated, just for a second, and in that second, I saw something flash across her face. Jealousy, regret, maybe even fear. Then she turned sharply and walked out. I shut the door behind her with a quiet click. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like my house again. Brenda had texted me that morning. Can we meet? Urgent. I'll explain in person. I assumed it was about more divorce paperwork, maybe something the lawyer needed signed or filed. She told me to meet her at a quiet cafe on the east side, the kind of place with antique chairs and chalkboard menus, tucked away from the main road like a secret. I got there first, chose a table in the corner, waited, and when she walked in, dark curls loose around her shoulders, navy blouse tucked into jeans, something about her presence felt different. Less cousin of my ex, more woman with something to say. Thanks for coming, she said, sitting down across from me. No problem, I replied. What's the urgency? She hesitated, took a breath, looked around once, then back at me. There's no paperwork, she said. No legal stuff. I raised an eyebrow. Then what is this? She folded her hands, voice soft but steady. It's about you. About us. Or what could be. I blinked. Brenda. I know, she said quickly, her voice tightening. It's complicated, but I'm not going to pretend anymore. Watching how Vanessa treated you, how she ran from something solid, I kept thinking, if I had what she had, I'd hold on to it. I sat back in my chair, a little stunned. I'm not saying you owe me anything, she added. I just needed to say it out loud, before it eats me alive. I opened my mouth, but then my phone buzzed on the table. Vanessa. I let it ring once, twice, then picked it up, holding it to my ear. Her voice poured through like honey left too long in the sun. Ryan, she said, stretching my name like an old song. I've been thinking about you. About us. I was wrong. I see that now. I didn't speak, just listened. I miss the way you used to make coffee. The way you folded my laundry when you thought I wasn't looking. The way you always knew when I needed quiet. She sniffed like she might cry. Cancun, it wasn't what I thought. He wasn't you. No one is. I messed up, Ryan. But we were good once. Can't we be again? I finally spoke. Calm. Clear. I don't recycle trash. Silence. Then I hung up. Brenda had been quiet through the whole call, her eyes steady on mine. Sorry about that, I said, setting the phone down. She gave a small smile. Don't be. That was the right answer. I nodded slowly. Yeah, it was. We stayed at that table for a while, talking, laughing even, and for the first time in a long, long time. I wasn't looking back. It was a Wednesday, quiet, uneventful. I was halfway through a spreadsheet when Jenna from reception buzzed me. Hey, Ryan, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your wife. I blinked. Vanessa? Uh-huh, Jenna said, awkward pause included. She brought lunch. A beat passed before I responded. Send her up. Curiosity didn't even cover it. Vanessa hadn't spoken to me since that desperate call she made days earlier. Not a message. Not a knock. And now she was showing up at my office with a picnic basket like it was 2017 again. I stood up just as she stepped into the bullpen, like a scene scripted for maximum performance. She wore a soft floral dress, hair down in waves, makeup light but meticulous. In her hands, she carried a brown paper bag and a Tupperware container. Surprise, she said, smiling too big. I made your favorite, lemon pepper chicken and that little couscous salad you always liked. Heads turned around the office. My coworkers looked up from keyboards, pausing mid-call or mid-keystroke. Everyone heard that. I offered her nothing but a long, measured stare. She looked so normal, so staged. Like she was auditioning for a role she'd already quit. What are you doing here, Vanessa? I asked, keeping my voice low but not particularly warm. I figured I'd do something kind. I mean, after everything, maybe we could just talk. Somewhere neutral. I brought enough for both of us. She started unpacking it on my desk, like that made it real. I glanced around. Half the floor was still watching. And I'd had enough of pretending. I stood slowly and cleared my throat. Everyone, I said, loud enough for the room. Chairs swiveled. Fingers paused over keyboards. This woman, I continued, ran off with another man a month ago. Lied to my face. Disappeared to Cancun with him after borrowing money from her own cousins. She hasn't apologized. She hasn't asked how I'm doing. But today, she shows up with couscous like she never left. Vanessa froze, her hand still on the lid of the container. Gasps. Awkward glances. Some people quickly turned back to their screens, pretending not to have heard. But they had. All of them had. Vanessa's mouth parted. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for a soft place to land. But there wasn't one. Ryan, she hissed under her breath. You're humiliating me. No, I said, looking her dead in the eyes. You did that all by yourself. I picked up the paper bag gently, walked it back to her, and placed it in her hands. Take it with you, I said. We're done pretending. And with that, I turned my back on her and sat back down. She stood frozen for a moment, like she couldn't process how far her charm had fallen. Then she turned and walked out, the sound of her heels sharp against the tile. Nobody said anything for a while. Then finally, Jenna poked her head in with a raised brow. So, want me to block her from the visitor list? I nodded. Absolutely. Back to the spreadsheet. Back to a life where truth had finally won. The place was quiet, just dim enough to make everything feel more intimate, more honest. A tucked-away bistro Brenda had picked. Soft jazz floated from a speaker in the ceiling. Warm candlelight flickered in the center of the table, glinting off her wine glass. I almost didn't ask you out tonight, Brenda admitted, swirling her glass. Why not? She shrugged, playful. You've been through a hurricane. I wasn't sure you'd want another storm. I smiled. You're not a storm. She looked down, smiling into her wine. Good. I'm not here to break you. You couldn't if you tried, I said. Because honestly, I think I've already been broken. And somehow, that made me stronger. She set her glass down, leaned forward slightly. Can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. When did you stop loving her? I stared at the flame dancing in the candle between us. I didn't even notice when it ended. That's the strangest part. You'd expect love to go out with a bang, fighting, drama. But sometimes it just fades. Quietly. Like someone turning down the volume little by little until all you have left is static. Brenda nodded slowly, taking that in. And now. I looked up at her. Now I feel peace when I talk to you. That's not something I'm used to. Not anymore. Her eyes softened, and she reached across the table, brushing her fingers lightly over mine. The rest of the dinner felt like stepping back into myself, laughing easily, sharing stories, letting the past drift farther into the background. She made me feel like a man again, not just someone surviving, someone living. And then, as we were finishing dessert, it happened. The front door burst open, and in came Vanessa. Eyes wild, heels clicking fast, hair curled just a little too perfectly, like she'd been sitting in her car rehearsing her entrance. Her gaze swept the room and landed on us like a hawk locking onto prey. She stood at the edge of our table, breathing hard. So this is what it's come to. Brenda sat back slightly, startled but composed. I didn't flinch. I folded my napkin, set it beside my plate, and looked up at her calmly. You should go, I said softly. Her voice dropped to a sharp whisper. You're out with her? She's not the one who left, I replied. I made a mistake, she hissed. But this is low. Is it? I asked, still calm. Or is it just not about you anymore? Her eyes darted to Brenda. You think this is real? She's using you. She's only doing this to get back at me. Brenda stood slowly, her voice quiet but firm. Vanessa, this isn't about you. You made your choices. You walked away. And I'm not sorry he's moving on. Vanessa laughed, but it cracked midway through, shaky, brittle. I gave you years, Ryan. I was your wife. You were, I said. But not anymore. She stared at me, mouth parted slightly. Her eyes, once so calculated, were wide now, full of disbelief, then fury. Her control had slipped. She couldn't charm her way back this time. You're not welcome here anymore, I told her gently. Not in this restaurant. Not in this chapter of my life. She froze for a beat too long, and then she turned, storming out without another word. The door swung shut behind her, leaving only silence and the faint clink of silverware in the background. Brenda exhaled, watching her go. That was intense. I nodded. Yeah, but necessary. She smiled gently. You okay? I turned back to her, and for the first time in what felt like forever, The answer came easy. I am now. We left not long after. Outside, the night was crisp, the stars clearer than I'd seen in months. As we stood near her car, she paused. Can I ask you one more thing? Anything. Do you want this to be something real? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Her eyes lit up, and I leaned in, slowly, deliberately. We kissed, under the soft glow of the streetlight, the world around us finally, completely still. It wasn't revenge. It was release. And I didn't look back once. We didn't rush it. Brenda and I took our time. But when the lease on her apartment came up, and she started leaving more sweaters at my place than taking them home, the move just made sense. We found a cozy 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city. Nothing flashy. Just hardwood floors that creaked in the right places, a porch swing that Brenda claimed on day one, and a kitchen that got morning light like it was poured straight from heaven. We moved in during the fall. The leaves were just beginning to turn, and for the first time in years, the changing season didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning I didn't know I'd been waiting for. The first morning in the new place, I came downstairs to find her barefoot in the kitchen, humming softly while she poured 2 glasses of orange juice. She looked up with a sleepy smile and said, "You want eggs too, or just toast today?" Just that. No edge. No tension. No storm hidden in a simple question. "Eggs sound perfect," I said, and sat down at the breakfast bar. She slid the juice toward me and kissed the top of my head as she passed by. I sat there, sipping it slowly, taking in everything. The way the morning sunlight hit her shoulder, the scent of coffee drifting from the pot, the faint jazz playing from her phone. There were no accusations in her eyes. No competition, just partnership. Sometimes peace is so quiet, it startles you. We painted the living room together one weekend, laughing over spilled rollers and color swatches with ridiculous names like Early Wheat and Gray Whisper. We argued over the couch pillows once, not angrily, just passionately, like 2 people who cared about building something worth sitting in. At night, we'd read on the same couch, her feet tucked under my leg. Or we'd cook together, switching off who stirred and who seasoned, our rhythm easy and familiar. No second guessing. No dodging invisible landmines. Just life, shared. I caught myself one morning, weeks in, looking at her while she was half dancing to music in the kitchen, wearing one of my old flannel shirts, and I realized I wasn't waiting for something bad to happen anymore. I didn't have to brace myself before asking for orange juice. I didn't have to explain my presence, defend my tone, or question hers. I was simply here, with her. Brenda didn't just walk into my life. She walked me out of the wreckage. And standing in that warm, golden kitchen, with her handing me a plate of eggs and that same sleepy smile, I finally felt like a man restored. Not rescued. Restored. A month had passed since Brenda and I said our vows. Simple, quiet, no drama. Just a small ceremony beneath a canopy of oak trees, surrounded by people who had seen us through the worst and still believed in second chances. And now here we were, her hand in mine, as we walked into a backyard full of folding chairs, potato salad, and relatives trying to remember who brought the lemonade. It was Brenda's uncle's birthday, but as always, the whole family showed up. Kids darted between lawn games, someone manned the grill, and an aunt kept offering everyone deviled eggs like they were gold. The moment we stepped into the yard, I felt it. That small shift in attention. Not a spotlight. More like a quiet acknowledgement. People noticed. Heads turned. Smiles stretched. Brenda leaned over and whispered, "You good?" I squeezed her hand. More than. We made our rounds. Laughs, hugs, a few knowing looks from Brenda's cousins who had been there since the divorce papers were still warm. And then, of course, she arrived. Vanessa. She wore heels that sank into the lawn and a sundress that tried a little too hard to be casual. She walked in alone, but her presence carried its usual weight, like she still believed the world owed her some kind of attention. She spotted us almost instantly. Her eyes narrowed, lips twisting into that polite version of a grimace she used to pass off as a smile. Well, she said, approaching like a cat sizing up new furniture. "Didn't expect to see you two here." Brenda stayed silent, letting me handle it. She knew me now, when to speak and when to let me stand on my own. "We were invited," I said, calm and unshaken. "Just like you." Vanessa chuckled, faux sweet. "How sweet? Newlyweds crashing family BBQs already?" No one laughed. A few nearby relatives heard her tone, Bianca, Brenda's older brother, even their grandmother, and their expressions turned to stone. No one stepped in. No one needed to. The silence around her said everything. Vanessa glanced around, noticing the sudden chill. Well, she mumbled, hope the food's better than last year. She walked off toward the drink table like nothing happened. But everyone else saw it. They saw her, grasping for relevance, and us, solid in the middle of the noise. Later, while Brenda was talking to her cousins, I stood under the shade of a sycamore tree, sipping lemonade, watching the sun settle low over the backyard. Vanessa stood alone near the edge of the yard, watching the laughter, the warmth, the family she used to call hers. No one approached her. No one asked how she'd been. That was the justice. Not a courtroom, not revenge, just time, truth, and the quiet weight of consequences. Brenda returned and leaned into me, her hand slipping into mine. You okay? She asked again. I looked down at her, smiled. I am now. And I meant it. And that was the end of my story. You know, Brenda risked her relationship with her own cousin just to stand by me when everyone else stepped back. She chose loyalty over blood. Do you think she did the right thing? Or would you have done it differently? Let me know in the comments. And if this story hit home, don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got more to share.